All right, so look, this Dane Brugler mock draft that we all kind of shot down earlier in the week. Today we were sitting around, we were talking about the show, laying it out, and from the Harbaugh stuff to the Y9 Omaha 4-down rally blitz thingy, and then Khang turns to me and says the following.
I'm starting to get on board with the Athletics mock draft of the Lions moving up a few spots with their second first-round pick to select quarterback Anthony Richardson. Now, when you guys brought this up earlier in the week, you both hated it. Like, Doug, you were visibly upset, even though it was a mock draft. You thought it had really happened.
It affected Doug's day.
Yes. And
Gator,
you
was
didn't
stupid.
like it.
It was a utter overreaction.
I wasn't like that. I was just like, wow, I was caught off guard and expect it. But I also thought if you're going to move up, it better be for some kind of game breaker like Jameson Williams last year, right? And so I thought before you announced who the pick was, I was like, who are they moving up for? And then you said quarterback Anthony Richardson. The last couple of days, because we haven't done our deep dive yet. Fortunately for us, the Lions were playing great down the stretch. We're talking about playoffs, not mock drafts. So I haven't done the deep dive in all the quarterbacks and cornerbacks and things like that, but we started getting to it a little bit. When this mock draft came out, I went back and looked at Anthony Richardson. And I remember, if you guys remember the first game of the year, I mean, he was unbelievable. It came out of like, this guy's going to be the number one pick. Like that type of play, right? I think they played, was it Utah? It was a good opponent.
Utah, yeah.
Yeah, it was a good opponent too. And he did everything. Ran through. It was the whole nine, right? Listen, the reason why he's not being talked about the number one pick overall is because he's inconsistent. He didn't do that every single game this year.
No, he did not.
But if you look at it, the ceiling is there. That you saw the week one is possible. He's only 21 years old. He's a big quarterback with a strong arm, and we know he can move around. 6'3", 240 almost. I think he's almost
6'4",
yeah, 6'4", sorry. He's like the size of Josh Allen. Now, he's got to work on his accuracy. Did I just mention Josh Allen? Had to work on his accuracy as well. And guess what? Richardson's more athletic than Josh Allen was. Now, he might not have the cannon arm Allen does, but he's got a really strong arm. When Josh Allen got drafted high, people were like, whoa, this is a reach. But they saw a skill set, and they saw the ability and how big he was and the arm strength to make NFL throws. And that's kind of what you do when you draft a quarterback not 1-1, right? Because the 1-1s are like Trevor Lawrence, Andrew Luck, Manning. Those guys, even Matthew Stafford was kind of groomed to be the 1-1 guy, right? First pick, first round, all that. But after that, I think you're kind of looking for guys you can develop a little bit, that have room. And the perfect stash quarterback is the Lions. The Lions are in a position with the draft capital to do something like this. This is almost like a free pick. You have something other teams want, extra draft capital. I think you got to use it wisely. And then I'm not kicking Goff out the door. And this seems crazy because no one wants this because Goff just played unbelievable. I don't dispute that at all. I want Goff to be the starting quarterback next year. But Brad Holmes even said at the end of the year, he's not against this theory. And this theory has worked, and it hasn't worked as well, but it has worked over the last 5, 6, 7, 10 years.
All right, so a couple things about Anthony Richardson. One is the Utah game, he went 17 of 24, but for only 168 yards. But he carried the ball 11 times for 106 yards. But nothing epitomizes Anthony Richardson quite like his last two games as a Florida Gator. He goes 25 of 42 for 400 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a pick against Vanderbilt. 25 of 42 for 400 yards. The next game, he goes 9 of 27 for 198 yards against Florida State. The one thing you said that is absolutely accurate, he is indeed a draft and stash guy. 100% a draft and stash guy.
He is not ready, clearly. You know, he needs to sit for a year or two, maybe 3, and he's got to learn to play the position. He's got to be more accurate. He's got to make the right reads. When he does, he's electric. When he's not, you just read his last game, not very good. But he's got things that you can't teach. Now, I'm not going to call him Mahomes or anything like that, but Mahomes played in the Big 12. You know, who did Richardson have on his team this year? He played in the SEC. Josh Allen played at Wyoming. This is the 16th or 15th or maybe 18th pick overall. This isn't a top 5. I think with you're your 6th pick overall, if the Lions stay there, you draft a guy that can help the defense immediately. I think the next pick is a perfect, if you want to go there. I'm not saying you have to, but if you want to go with the draft and stash QB, I think Richardson's the perfect guy.
He may be the perfect guy, but it's not the perfect pick to do it. You don't draft and stash in the first round. The last time in fact, the last last 7 drafts or so, the only guy to be drafted and stashed in the first round is Jordan Love. Everyone else is played right away for the most part.
Mahomes was the draft and stash.
I suppose Mahomes was drafted and stashed, but
he didn't play his rookie year.
That is factually true, and that goes back to the 2017 draft, and he was taken 10th overall.
Yeah, they traded up.
Yeah, but I suppose that they knew that they were going to move on from Alex Smith. That's why you take somebody 10th overall. Do you feel like the Lions know they're going to move on from Jared Goff anytime soon?
I don't know they're actually going to keep him beyond. They have to sign to an extension, too. But look what Alex Smith did that last year when they drafted Mahomes. He was unbelievable. He was great. You love stats? Look at his stats. They went to the playoffs. And guess what they still did? They moved on. If you see the guy, and hey, I don't know if Richardson's going to be the guy for sure, or no one does, right? But this is a scenario where you're using the 18th pick or maybe 15th pick, according to the Athletic mock, to draft and stat. I think it's the perfect scenario to do something like this. I think people just need to be more open to it. I'm not saying you have to do it, but I think everyone's been completely short-sighted and enamored by what Goff did this year because he was so good, right? Mm-hmm. But you can't forget there is still, when you're a GM, you don't just GM for today. You GM for today, tomorrow, the year after, and so forth. I think it's the perfect scenario.
So there's a couple things here. One is, if they go out in free agency and land a starter at linebacker, a good starter at linebacker, and a good corner.
In free agency,
before we even get to the draft, could I see them saying with the 2nd pick, we'll use it on a draft and stash quarterback? I kind of can, because they still have 2 second-round picks, which they could maybe pair together to move up and get a better player. And they have created this luxury for themselves. Going into this season, I would have said before the 2022 season was played that on the table for the Lions in the first round, I would have argued was edge rusher, quarterback, and safety. 3 positions I no longer want them to address in the first couple of rounds. That's 3 picks that they don't have to get a quarterback. They don't have to. They don't have to get an edge rusher, and they don't have to get a safety. They may decide to do so, but those would have been high priorities that are no longer high priorities. That has created flexibility for them to use this bonus extra pick they have for just your reasoning is there. It doesn't mean I would do it.
I understand that. I respect the other side for sure. But yeah, you just laid it out perfectly. You have the luxury this year of this extra draft capital. Even if you're really sketchy, you don't want to move up. Okay, but if he falls to you at 18, you don't even have to give up anything extra, right? You don't have to give up the extra 3rd or 4th rounder or whatever. You mentioned the 2 second rounders. I mean, this is the year to do it. Now, next year, you're going to have presumably 1 first-round pick. It might be, we're hoping, after 20 or so, right? This is the year. I think you still have that top 5, top 6 pick where you can get a guy right away to help you immediately. And I think you have an opportunity to also look towards the future.
Maybe it's that I'm not sold on Anthony Richardson.
I get it.
Yeah, and I'm trying to find other ways to go, okay, if it's not Anthony, let's say somebody is, and they draft him in the top 5, and it's Will Levis who's there. Would you trade up to get Will Levis at 15?
Yeah.
I understand what you're saying, and I'm not as dismissive of it today as I was yesterday. Yesterday, I hated it like Doug did. But as we talk about it, and it's so important to remember, free agency really does pave the way for what you're going to do in the draft, or at least it gives you an idea. Typically with other teams that'll sign free agents to long-term deals. The difference is that's not been Brad Holmes' MO when it comes to free agency. He hasn't signed guys to multiple-year contracts, anything really beyond 2 years. So I don't know if I expect them to go out and try to sign Tremaine Edmonds to a a 5-year contract to be the next linebacker for the Lions, or if they're going to go out and give a corner a 4-year deal. I don't know what they're going to do when it comes to free agency. If in all honesty, I probably think that the biggest thing they're going to do is a 2-year deal again. So it's not a firm commitment. The draft is where they make their commitments. And I think, if I'm the Lions, I'm looking at that as a golden opportunity to really solidify the defensive shortcomings that you have. I'm more open to it after this discussion about it, but I'm still way leaning towards the side of I'm not going to draft the quarterback at 15 because there's so many other things you can do, like trade up or trade back. Now, if you trade back out of 6 and you get another second-round pick or something like that because you did so, am I inclined to maybe even more open to taking a quarterback and stash him? Then yes.